Molly Superthorpe, a professional lettering artist, calligrapher, and designer of tools for other artists. Today I'm so excited to introduce you to my biggest brush pack yet, the Ultimate Lettering and Calligraphy Procreate Kit. This is a mixed media brush collection with calligraphy pens, markers, watercolor and chalk writers, monoline pens, lettering guides, textures, and more. There are actually over 150 brushes in this kit that will take you from sketching letters to polished compositions. In addition to the brushes themselves, there are also over 100 quick guides, practice sheets, and bonuses, so it's really jam-packed. I'm going to give you a preview of everything you'll find in this kit, along with samples of artwork created using the brushes. To get this kit for yourself, just tap the link below. Everything you see today represents 4 months of designing, testing, editing, and then testing some more. This pack was designed in collaboration with Design Cuts, my favorite online marketplace for digital creative assets. I also had other professional lettering artists and calligraphers test the brushes in their own unique styles, and they gave me some great feedback that I incorporated to make the kit even stronger. To jump to a specific section in this video, please refer to the timestamps I've listed below. Now, let's dive right in. The first brush set in the pack is pointed pens. This is a collection of 12 new calligraphy brushes that I carefully crafted for modern and traditional script calligraphy styles. They're pressure sensitive to exactly mimic real pointed calligraphy nibs. Because of my background as an ink on paper calligrapher for the past 13 years, I'm extremely picky about digital calligraphy tools. It was really important for me to create brushes that not only emulate the look of pointed calligraphy pens, but the feel of them as well. Each of the 12 pointed pen brushes have different ink characteristics, texture, and responsiveness. This is exactly like real metal calligraphy nibs, where different nibs have different pressure sensitivity and flow, and the texture of the letters depends on your choice of paper and ink. Also, like real pointed pens, it's crucial that you write very, very slowly with these brushes and use control with your pressure. This ensures that, just like when writing with ink on paper, your strokes are smooth and precise, and your transitions from thick to thin are fluid. Here's a piece of artwork created by professional calligrapher Sarah Richardson, who's truly masterful with copperplate calligraphy. She used my classic pointed pen brush, and you can see that her flourishing and delicate illustrations mirror the look of real, flexible metal nibs. This set is not just for experienced professionals, so if you're new to pointed pen calligraphy, welcome. You're in the right place because this kit includes these calligraphy practice sheets as well that come as layered Procreate files and function like little workbooks. These will teach you this beautiful, flourished pointed pen style, but will also teach you all the fundamentals you need to start using pointed calligraphy pens like a pro. So if you've never used a pointed pen before, start with the basics, where you'll learn how pointed pens work based on pressure sensitivity and direction, and you can follow the arrows to learn the essential strokes before even moving on to letter forms. The other practice sheets in the set are for lowercase and uppercase letters, which also have arrows to show you the stroke direction, and they break down the different strokes that combine to form each letter. Before we keep going, I need to share what is possibly the most important, but sometimes most confusing setting for any well-programmed lettering brush in Procreate. This is a setting called Streamline, and you may already be familiar with it. All my brushes are meticulously programmed with custom Streamline settings. However, making the most of Streamline requires writing really slowly and carefully, exactly as you would on paper. You may be someone who finds Streamline cumbersome because it can cause a very subtle drag on the pen if you write too quickly. So I just want to show you now how to adjust Streamline yourself should you want to customize that one aspect of my brushes. Here I've drawn the word Streamline using maximum Streamline strength. Note the speed at which I wrote and how smooth the strokes are. Now I've tapped on that brush, but you can open absolutely any drawing or lettering brush that you want in order to do this. And I'm adjusting the strength of it to 50% and then writing the same word again. Just look at how the transitions from downstroke to upstroke, in other words, the transition from exerted pressure to released pressure, becomes rough and clumsy when there's no compensation for the Apple Pencil on the smooth screen. The strokes are more wriggly and uneven, even though I wrote at the exact same speed. So if you're an artist who doesn't mind less smooth strokes and you want to make fast writing much easier for you, by all means, customize the Streamline setting. You should not need to customize any other settings on these brushes though for beautiful lettering strokes. The watercolor pens are a set of 16 brushes, optimized for calligraphy and lettering. They're elegant, ethereal watercolor writers with 16 different strokes, textures, and opacities. This is the set that possibly took me the longest time to perfect, as I worked really hard to make handcrafted textures that emulate real pigment, paper, and watery translucency. In addition to the pens themselves, you'll get 3 wash brushes as part of the Textures brush set, which are wonderful for drawing backgrounds and watery accents. Play with the opacity of these brushes to create more or less pigment in the watercolor wash. You'll also get my watercolor pens quick guide to help you make the most of the watercolor set. You will learn here my own techniques for blending, softening, and layering, plus a traceable practice sheet for you to test out all the different brushes. My marker set includes 12 felt tip and brush lettering tools, each of which mimics a different kind of marker. These range from soft brush pens to felt chisel tips to round alcohol markers. One of my personal favorites is the washable felt tip marker, which I designed to be reminiscent of Crayola Kids markers. This brush even emulates the layerability of real washable markers, where you can clearly distinguish each stroke when you color with them. I don't know if you're like me, but I still love using kids markers, even for lettering. This beautiful piece was designed by lettering artist Joanna Munoz, who actually combined 4 different marker brushes into one gestural composition. This is why I love seeing what you and other artists create with my tools, because this style is so very different from my own, and it inspires me to use my own brushes in a way I hadn't even thought of before. To get started using the marker brushes with lettering, turn to the brush lettering practice sheets that come in the kit. You can use any of the 12 letter marker brushes to practice this style, and even see a sample of each brush and its unique look and feel. Here I'm using my silky ribbon marker to trace and practice each letter. My letter inkers brush set is one of my personal favorites because these pens have a really unique flow and character. This is a set of 12 gestural ink brushes and real ink splatters. They mimic the carefree, irregular look of soft paint brushes dipped in ink and are beautifully translucent, like fountain pen ink, so you can build up layers in your lettering. But the best part about letter inkers is that no 2 strokes will ever be the same. These brushes are highly responsive, so varying your pressure and even speed just a little bit will affect the width and opacity. This makes the resulting artwork have a really unique, organic, and handmade look. This set is about having fun. Unlike some other brushes, such as the pointed calligraphy pens, the inkers are all about letting loose and not striving for specific, regimented letter forms. I do not use guidelines when I draw with these brushes, and I aim for variation in my letters rather than uniformity. As a finishing touch, you can use the 5 ink splatter brushes to complete your composition. These are sampled from real ink droplets and ink sprays. Just as for the watercolor pens, you also get a quick guide to letter inkers to introduce you to the brush set. This is a layered Procreate file with samples of the inkers and even a practice sheet for guided experimentation with the brushes. The Chalk Writers set contains 6 pressure-sensitive chalk lettering brushes, plus 4 detail brushes for adding chalk dust, shading, dots, and smudges. In designing these brushes, I really focused on getting the most realistic texture possible and making sure it was high-resolution texture so that it translates beautifully into print. Each of the 6 chalk writers have very different characteristics, which mimic sharpened and dull sticks of chalk, dry and dusty chalk, and chalk writing on different textures of boards. These different stroke effects make it possible to create any style of lettering, from big and bold to fine and flourished. This lettering layout was made with my big chalk brush, which I like for modern lettering because it's precise enough for fine strokes, but chunky and dusty enough to mimic real chalk lettering. In this design, I combined the bright chalk and the fine chalk brushes for contrast not only in stroke width, but opacity and texture as well. If you're familiar with analog chalk art, you may recognize that this is similar to the difference between a dull stick of chalk and a sharpened one. The kit also comes with 2 chalkboard background brushes, which I'll demonstrate later so you can complete your chalk compositions with realistic slate texture. I think that lots of people turn to monoline pens for drawing line art, but I personally love monoline for lettering too. There's something so fresh about a simple monoline alphabet, which really appeals to me. This kit contains 9 monoline brushes for lettering and also for fine drawing and outlining. Because monoline pens are so crisp, I love using them to outline lettering that needs to be extremely precise, like for print and manufacturing, or even for vectorizing later. Each monoline brush has a different texture, and I've even included an ombre monoline pen, which changes color as you write. You'll also find 2 styles of dotted monoline pens, which I personally use for drawing decoration on other types of lettering. Here's an example where I used one of the dotted pens for the inner lines in this all-caps ribbon lettering style. For learning monoline lettering, use the monoline script practice sheets, which you can pair with any of the 9 monoline pens in the kit. I've designed these sheets to introduce you to the basics of monoline script lettering, and then teach you a beautiful monoline style reminiscent of mid-century cursive. Next up is the flat tip pen set, which contains 14 brushes with squared off tips for an array of lettering styles. These pens are divided into 3 types. The first are the sign painter's brushes, which mimic exactly what the name suggests, the stiff, square paintbrushes used in hand-lettered signage. Like a real lettering paintbrush, these have flat, monoline ink flow, even around curves, so you can get smooth, even strokes without much effort. They work beautifully for big, all-cap styles and for funky, bold styles too. Like the letter inker set, no 2 sign painter's brushes strokes are ever exactly the same. From start to finish, each stroke has random texture, making them extremely realistic. Next up are parallel pens. These are broad-tip calligraphy pens for traditional calligraphy styles, such as black letter. You'll find 9 parallel pens in this kit in 4 stroke shapes: solid stroke, center split, side split, and triple stroke. Each shape comes in different textures for a wide variety of styles. These parallel pens, just like their analog counterparts, are entirely dependent on your pen angle. Here's a sample of a black letter-inspired alphabet. If you've never used a broad tip pen before, it may just take you a little bit of practice to learn what angle your arm needs to be at to create those thick strokes, and then how you should change your arm's angle for the thin strokes. I really love all types of contrast in lettering, and combining broad tip with pointed pen calligraphy is just such a beautiful combination. You can see here that I juxtaposed that black letter alphabet with the organic flourishes of pointed pen script. I just love the way that this looks. The final type of flat tip brushes are ribbon pens. These are really the perfect gestural brushes for big, bold script lettering. The way that the pen angle changes as you write, a bit like folded ribbon, is what makes these different from your traditional marker brush. I love to combine and layer these pens, making the texture really the star of the show. In this example, I used the gradient ribbon pen for my script, and then the noise ribbon pen to create a quick and easy drop shadow effect. And speaking of dimensional type, the next brush set to show you is the 3D pens. These write with instant dimension, no layering is required. There are 8 brushes in the 3D pen set, divided between pressure-sensitive calligraphy pens and monoline strokes. Within those 2 categories, you have 4 different kinds of dimension, those with dimension cast to the right, cast to the left, and outlined versions of both. It may seem almost like magic, but these brushes truly do draw letters with built-in dimension in just a single stroke. Whatever color you choose from your palette will be the primary lettering color, and the dimension will be a 50% lighter version of that same color. If you're not already familiar with drawing your own dimension in lettering, especially in script with all those curved strokes, these pens may be a great way to learn and visualize the direction of dimension and drop shadows. My collection of 14 novelty pens is like the grab bag of the kit. All of these are whimsical brushes that are just plain fun. In this set, you'll find pens that write like a slinky, brushes with a mesh effect, and even really figurative pens like bright balloon and neon tube. Here's the twisted ribbon pen, which truly writes exactly like a folded piece of ribbon with just a single stroke. No adjustments or changes in angle are required to create this effect. I must say I was pretty pleased with how this turned out because I really challenged myself to create a brush that not only looks like real ribbon, but can write in script as well. The set of guide brushes in this kit comes with 10 guideline stamps for lettering layout designs, and 4 guide pattern brushes for drawing your own grids at any size. In this set, you'll find stamps for square and radial guides, arced and slanted lines, and 2 calligraphy guide bars, one for traditional styles and another for modern styles. Here you can see a lettering sketch that I did using a combination of the arced stamps and one of the calligraphy guide stamps. By combining these different guides, I can come up with endless custom layouts. You can see how this really made it easy for me to combine different lettering styles and create a really nice custom layout design. As you can see from that example, I personally do a lot of sketching of my letters to really plot out the shapes and layout. This kit includes a set of 5 pressure-sensitive art pencils for sketching at various opacities and textures. Because these are pressure sensitive, you can easily sketch any lettering style, even flourished calligraphy. No lettering toolkit would be complete without brushes to add finishing touches to your compositions. You'll find 13 texture brushes in this pack, 6 detail brushes for shading and spot texture, and 7 overlay brushes for texturizing your whole canvas. Here's an example of incorporating texture to illustrate dramatic shadows. In this word, I created the illusion of 3-dimensional strokes using the grainy shadow brush to darken the areas where strokes overlap. In this composition, I used the same technique of adding grainy shadow to create the illusion of overlapping strokes. Starting with one of the lettering grids, I sketched out my design using pencil, and then I went over that sketch using a monoline brush to outline all of the letters. After filling them in, I used the technique of adding grainy shadow with the grainy shadow brush to create the illusion of overlapping strokes. I also used the dotted monoline pen to create inlines on each of the strokes, sort of to emulate real ribbon. As a finishing touch, I used the grunge overlay brush to add depth and visual interest to the whole composition. There are also 12 background pattern brushes in this kit, ranging from different types of art paper to chalkboards to fabric. Each of these brushes utilizes whatever color you select from your palette, and they're all translucent, making them perfect for combining and layering. For example, to create a chalkboard background, simply select black and draw with either of the 2 chalkboard background brushes. Here's the crumpled paper brush, which I'm also drawing with black over that white background layer. The retro paper brushes are probably my personal favorites. You get the retro graph paper and retro dot paper, both of which have really realistic paper texture, and then colored printing that pulls from whatever color you have in your palette. Here's a composition by lettering artist and muralist Haley Berry, where she used the retro dot paper as a background and also as a darker vignette around the edges. In addition to the 12 brush sets, 7 practice files, and 3 quick guides in this kit, you also get this bonus brush set with 44 frame stamps. These are great for combining with my lettering guides to create even more decorative and unique layouts. Or you can also use them on their own as outlined or filled in frames for your artwork. Thank you so much for your interest in the Ultimate Lettering and Calligraphy Procreate Kit. To buy this pack, simply follow the link below. I hope this video demonstration helps you make the most of the 150 plus brushes inside.